Hey everybody, we're back for the next round. We had a little bit of a break. Me and Chief kind of discussed amongst ourselves just everything that we've got on the board. Team Vale will be following them again for this round. PDHM Gaming will be joining them, and this is sure to be a real fiery matchup.
Oh no, my VMix was still muted. We have figured it out though, just talking to the wind. I like talking to myself. I like to hear my voice, just into the wind. But like I was saying before, I rudely interrupted myself. PDHM currently sits at seed number 1, starting off things in round number 5. And their opponents in this series finds themselves seated in round 3. There are still only 5 rosters that are currently undefeated right now. Revenge Nation, Slaughterhouse Bravo, and Team Versity, the Banana Boys, find themselves in that coveted spot. But in this series, some of these rosters will fall to a 1-round loss.
If you look at some of the matches that PDHM have been playing, I mean, they're not, 15 rounds in overtime. These are pretty quick regulation games. Yesterday, 7-3 versus Disrupt Women's Team, 7-0 versus Air Force Gaming, and 7-4 versus Amarok Orange, which is surprising that one went a little bit closer, far from the norm. And today, in the earlier match, while we had the previous cast, 7-2 versus Team Billquad, which is, that's a pretty good score to set yourself up with. Team Vale, they're a good team, good composition, strong individual talents, but the story of their play so far has been close, nail-biter games, not the fast blitzing victories of PDHM.
And continuing through our scoreboard, my friend, guess who's sitting in 11th place? It's Jimmy, Bucket, and the boys. After a great showing in round 4, they've also only lost once. And I think if we do some quick mental math, the max amount of times you can lose to still be guaranteed top 10 is 3. So they have a great buffer room moving forward. And actually, everybody in that top 10 finds themselves in a perfect buffer room. And honestly, what we see right now in front of us, I'm actually assuming to be the teams to qualify because, well, are standout in everything they accomplish, whether or not it's the gatekeepers, aggro. And actually, I think my dark horse, people don't talk enough about this roster. They were surprised when they entered SCL. That is Revenge Nation. They've been playing lights out in every series they participate in.
Gotta agree with you there. I mean, their players are spontaneous. If you look at specifically UMP on Revenge Nation, he's a real fragger. But focusing a little bit more, we already kind of talked about Team Vale. We could go in depth a little bit more on PDHM. I know right off the bat, everybody knows his name, EXO. He's got to be the face of this team. You've also got Raffi, who I've heard of his long legacy inside T3, and he is certainly one of those players to watch out for. I think they've also got Subarctic on this roster, WAV as well, or Wave. And one difficult question that I'm going to ask and pose to you here, Chief. Could you predict this match?
I have to think about that for a second. Could I predict this match? No. And I couldn't predict our last match. Actually, I did not expect it to go around 15, if I'm in all honesty. Like, the way we saw the club play was brilliant. Round 15 against a team that has so much experience is brilliant. And based off that alone, when you have 2 Titan rosters going against but has equal amount of experience, there's no guessing. It's going to come down to what map we have and what roster is more comfortable on it. And if both rosters are equally as comfortable, is it going to come down to frags? Is it going to come down to strategy? Is it just going to come down to who's in the best mental space? Probably all the above, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good dynamic to look at. And in analyzing the previous game that we just had on stream, I think there's 2 questions there. One, is the performance of Team Vale in going to overtime affected more by their individual skill or an increase in performance from Le Club? And because they have just played a 15-round match, how much more warmed up are they compared to PDHM? And going into this second match, I have to favor PDHM a little bit, but those 2 big questions, I think, affect a lot the score that we might see and the close nature of this game. If I had to put a number on it, I wouldn't bet, but I think PDHM probably somewhere 7-5, 7-4. It all depends on Team Vale, though. Do they come out hot out of the gate and prepared to play against such a great team?
You know, you made an interesting point. Are they warmed up or are they well burnt out? Now, sure, 15 rounds, you can say, oh, they're hot. They just came off a hype victory. But imagine the mental strain they just had to go through. That can be taxing. And sure, you can say, oh, esports isn't physical. And to a certain extent, sure, you're right. And there's a lot of mental behind it too. You have to be a true competitor in a series like this where you play 3 games a day for 3 weeks. Or 3 weeks, 3 days. Imagine doing that for 3 weeks straight. That would be a true test of mental. But here today, we also have to keep in the fact that EXO was in chat. He was watching the Oregon strategies. So are we going to see Oregon? Possibly. He's going to have the upper hand, knowing the hand of his opponents.
You know, that's something good to talk about. And I think we'll factor into the map bans once we get the word from production just where we'll be going to. I think if we're kind of surveying the pool, I feel comfortable in PDHM on 2 maps. Clubhouse, Consulate. Vale. I think Vale can play well on Consulate as well. I think they might also be able to sneak in a theme park. And Oregon, I think it's in the middle. Obviously, there's that kind of VOD review aspect that EXO, you know, maybe he was looking through here and getting a bit of an idea so he could feed that back to his team. And to be honest, I think I'd be surprised to see Vale go back to Oregon again, especially with how close it was. 15 rounds is a lot to look at, especially from the PDHM point of view.
Yeah, but with that in mind, Aggro has done the exact same thing, going to Clubhouse. Did I mention Clubhouse? And they've won it every time. They took down Wichita Wolves in the first round of open qualifiers, and Wichita Wolves would actually qualify. So that shows that Aggro is worth their weight in salt, and it's a qualifier. So you're not really running true 110% strategies, particularly when you have 2 rosters of this caliber. You don't want to have any of your VODs on the market because there is going to be some very cunning, you know, support staff member from another T2 roster that's going to be sitting in chat right now and scribbling notes, taking down everything you do. And sure, these might be old strategies that you're not running that are current, but still, they can get an understanding of your play style. And even G2, who was accused of saving strategies all during the EU major, they still were running default strategies that they were running a month ago. And that's an opportunity for that analyst to understand what could be happening in the future.
Well, we just got word that Central servers are dead, so I'm not sure if maybe that'll mean we'll switch over to East, or hey, maybe come visit me on the West. So production, they're smart, they're figuring everything out, so we can talk a little bit more about the theory. I like the points that you bring up about the VOD review nature, and it's something I bring up a lot, especially when I do qualifiers. The way that you play in qualifiers is very different from regular season and playoffs. It's a little bit similar to ranked because you're kind of playing things a little bit more on the fly. You have to play a bit riskier because, especially in best of ones, a round win is huge. And if you have to win it by swinging, by going crazy, and by doing something that's not traditionally defined within the bounds of your strategy, if it gets you a round on the board, hey, that's one step closer to a potential victory in the round and moving forward in the standings as far as the qualifiers are concerned. As well, in the VOD review category, you're not going to want to bring out those really in-depth strategies for both of these teams who, not only if they are qualified, as I expect them to for Season 5 of SCS, but also with the next season of Challenger League on the horizon. You don't want to be throwing any of your strats that you've been working on and building up right out into the foray for teams to look at and review.
And I wish more teams would take that idea when going to qualifiers because, let's be real, we're currently sitting in T3, which means you really play 3 to 4 maps. It's your clubhouses, your cafes, your organs, and occasionally a villa. So since we're playing best of ones, you can guarantee that 3 of those 4 maps are instantaneously removed. And that's the way I like to approach qualifiers. I know those rosters are going to be very comfortable on those maps, and I guarantee that they're not going to be able to play on those maps because I have now banned them. And if they go against that, same idea, they're probably going to be removing Consulate, Theme Park, potentially Coastline, or Villa. And if you're an aggressive team, perfect place to be. You can be aggressive on Villa. You can be incredibly aggressive on Coastline. After all, it is the map that is known for one thing. individuals flying out every possible window, winning their gunfights. And if Coastline isn't your cup of tea, you can go to Consulate and do the same thing.
Yeah, and that's the big reason why I bring up Consulate, not only because it's got that fragging nature, you can kind of get away with playing very aggressive in some instances where normally on more of a clubhouse, more of an Oregon, you would be getting shut down, claymored, air jabbed. That factors into the bans, and I think there is room to play structured and coordinated on Consulate as well. It's a very difficult map to master, I would say, and teams that put a lot of effort into it, your Project Neos, especially if you look at the old Phantom Troop roster, Bang Boom Crack, they all played well on Consulate because they were able to really correct and create that mix of the aggressive play and the coordination.
And also, remember how we would see Defiance on Lycus Empire and they would just obliterate everybody because one moment they're flying out of window, chucking a nitrocell at you. Next moment, they're sitting in a corner, some dark alley corner that you've never droned in your life, and you walk past them. They have perfect trigger discipline, and then your roster's dead. So, like, the maps that you don't play, there's a lot of things still to be explored. And just because the pros are doing it doesn't mean you need to do it. Make your own strategies. And I hate that idea that, oh, T1 players do it, thus I should do it. They know everything. And they do know everything, or a lot of things, towards T1 teams. But you're not yet in T1. You're here in T3 or T2. And those have different playstyles. And we've heard across podcasts, professional players, casters saying that, we've seen rosters that have some of the best strategies we've seen participate in Challenger League, and then they crumble against Billy Bob Joe and his monkey squad where they just win once.
Yeah, I just had a peek into the lobby, and we'll be going to Cafe, which is kind of a map that sort of glanced over my mind. If you look at Oregon, I think Cafe is very similar, and before we had Oregon back in the pool, it was kind of the caster dilemma of Cafe was the map that you always saw. And it's because Cafe is a good map for teams that are new. It's easy to develop strategies. And I feel like you look on the map and it's like you're kind of approaching a map that there's already so much foundation to build on. It's not difficult really to kind of create these more in-depth strategies because you've got all of these VODs to look back on. I think honestly, if you did the math on the comp maps and which one have been played the most, probably going to be Cafe, because it's been in the pool for a long time. Same with Clubhouse, and it's so good for, I don't want to say beginners, because both of these teams, veterans of T2, T3, but it's good when you're rebuilding a team and you're developing and trying to figure out just how everybody feels comfortable and what strategies they're better with. If it's more roam heavy strategies, more kind of lurking and trying to force the attackers into full clearing, or more kind of anchor strats.
And that's a great way of thinking. We have legacy maps that have been in the pool for so long. What would happen if we just ejected a map? And sure, people say, oh, the new maps are not balanced, they're not fun to play, all that stuff. But would it revive competitive Siege, or at least just bring a new element? I would love to see a map just get removed altogether and bring something else in. Obviously, I'm not saying bring House in, but maybe rework Bake, rework Border, Ring and Skyscraper, Ring and Chalet. All those maps have been in the competitive pool at one time. 2 of those maps have been reworked. And I would just like to see a professional scrim on it. Maybe you say, all right, pick a bunch of players or pick 2 teams, just battle it out and have them write strategies, take it seriously, and maybe it's a viable map. Obviously, we've heard the pros scrim on. Some people say, yay, it's bueno. Some people say it's no bueno. And at the end of the day, does it really matter? We as viewers just want to have fun and watch good games.
True. I honestly think that's something that we're missing in Siege. Like, it seems like almost by chance there's a new map that gets added to the pool. It's not like trial and error, teams play on it, teams kind of figure out how it works. If the people above our heads at Ubisoft and kind of in all of the esports spheres decide that one map is bad and another one is good, they just make that decision for themselves. And I think it also kind of introduces a bit more of an opportunity for content. It would be fun to watch teams play in Scrim and, play coordinated on the maps that we don't get to watch all too often. And maybe, that's something to have as a mainstay at, big LAN events. Maybe the Invitational has got like, I I guess you would call it like an expedition map, you know, to kind of venture out and see how the new map plays and kind of just play pickups and figure out if that's going to work in a competitive environment or maybe not so.
I love that idea. Maybe you make it like a bracket series where you put Pro League teams there, Challenger League teams there, content creator teams, you know, rank star teams, and just let everybody experience the map, kind of learn the map, and go from there. Let's talk about Theme Park, for example. When that map entered in the ranked pool, everyone said, this map is vile, this map is heinous, please get rid of it. And then the Pro League players showed it, and I think the comp teams were like, oh, this map is actually viable, I can have fun on this. Now, the ranked stars probably don't agree with that, and they're probably angrily typing at me right now to say, how dare you even say that Theme Park is a decent map? But we've seen it become a staple map where everybody loves it. Oh my god. So adorable.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like the map pool is kind of stale sometimes.
Agreed.
And
Coastline, get it out of here.
There was rumors for a long time about a bank rework. I'm not sure if that was somebody just trolling and, you know, making fake leaks. Bank is a map that I feel like has a lot of possibility. Border is a fun map, and
I hate Border.
that doesn't always make it good and competitive because it's like Clubhouse is a map that's very simple to execute on the second floor, and it feels like Border on every bomb site. It's like you do this one thing every single time. It's not like, you know, there's an option to go for like a bottom up clear or like a clear over here, clear over there. You just do this one thing every single time.
Border, please. If I had a delete button from ranked, I would delete Border. I hate that map. I also hate Coastline, but that's because I'm a bot and can't aim. So, but like, if it was Sky, Chalet, and Border, I default ban Border. Actually, I enjoy Chalet in ranked. It's actually not as bad as people make it out. I mean, I've had maybe one bad experience in that map. Now, I'm also a troglodyte, and my 3 brain cells make me yeet myself out windows, so I've made sure to learn every Valcam on Chalet that people don't know, so that's kind of why I have fun, because I'm always just doing something brain dead. But hey, I mean, I took the time to learn the map, and I had fun with it. Again, not saying that it's competitively viable, because I don't think any of us, you know, here in T3 actually know if it's viable or not.
It's such an abstract question, and I feel like the definition of viable is not just like a map is viable or it isn't. I feel like it's kind of a sliding scale, and you can have a map that's viable but not fun, and you can have a map that's fun and not viable. And you know, maybe Cafe kind of falls into that same category, not so fun. But I am still eager to see how these two teams play on it. One thing that I'm really hoping for is more of those bottom-up clears. It's something we've seen kind of recently. I think it was, I want to say Dark Zero that pioneered it. Don't quote me on that. Kind of the buck clear. When you're on the top floor, you go below, you clear out Cocktail, and then all of a sudden, you know, that's like the defender's home territory, but they can't hide there anymore.
Bank had that upstairs in CEO. Like, Bank was my favorite, by far my favorite map that's been in the competitive pool, because I loved all the nuances. You wanted to go downstairs? Well, you could bring an FO12 to hold the white stairs, the server stairs. When Warden was introduced, you would bring a Warden there, and he would just get flash dumped to oblivion, and he would sit there. And also, probably the most fun executes to watch, and I can't believe I'm going to utter these words. Remember Ying Glass Lion meta? I don't even have a name for that. That abomination? That was so fun to watch on Bank, because the defenders would cower as things were flying over their heads, and as soon as they could see, or at least not be yinged, they would throw everything back. It was so fun to watch. But that being said, Bank doesn't exist anymore in the map pool. And you know what does, though? That is Cafe. And here we go, finally getting our series started. Our servers have blessed us. They're alive, they're active, and let's hopefully stay active at least.
I think we'll go back to us. So
I jinxed it. My fault. 100% my fault. I'll own it. My bad.
So, from my understanding, PDHM begin on the defense. Defense is, I don't know. Cafe is a map sort of similar like Villa, where I feel like it's kind of difficult to call, and it's more down to the teams and their performance on the map. I feel like that's kind of the more like astute, corncob pipe take to make, like, teams play good on a map and they win. Like, yeah, that applies.
Oh, I mean, it's always the one that says, like, well, if the attackers take the pace of a round, they tend to win the round. And it's like, absolutely correct.
Right. Like, yeah. I mean, that's kind of just like
win gunfight,
1 + 1
gun
= 2.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Wait, it equals 2? I thought it was 3.
Chief, you're killing me.
Well, since Cafe won't work for us, again, I would like to insert Bank as a possible option. Production, you can tell me to go eject myself from the cast, but still, give me some Bank. All right, you want to talk about that map since we're still waiting for technical issues?
Sure.
What was so fun was also open area, because we would see the 3-site rotation, and then teams would get creative with open area. And that was back in the day where we'd have Rook, Doc, ACOG, and we would have these just dumb plays, but they would work because you would have double ACOG peeking the parking lot. You would have them peeking over by jewelry front, and you're like, there's no way this works. And it works. Like, we need more of those, like, brain dead ways of playing, or the things that you would never expect. And to E-United's credit, they did that, but then everything they did was like that. If you're always playing unpredictable, it becomes predictable.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so far you can go down the aggressive road to where teams are just like, you know what, I'm just not gonna let you do that. I'm gonna prepare for it. I'm gonna, kind of. I just feel like it's hard to make a team out of just playing aggressive. You kind of have to be able to play, normal Siege and be able to, change from aggressive if you're just continuously getting slaughtered, smothered, shut down, to be able to play more kind of normally. And that's something some teams struggle with, and some teams use to their advantage, and some teams ignore altogether and still find success. Especially, I mean, if you're looking at a team like the Gatekeepers, it seems like they just can't get enough of win after win.
Or Aggro, who does everything so aggressive and they just somehow win.
It's in the name.
What? I mean, sure, yeah, name yourself Aggro or have an org named Aggro pick you up when you play aggressive, but what I like about our new meta is the fact that it gives you that versatility, where in Utility Consumption Simulator, you had one job: burn ADSs, burn Will My Pancakes, destroy deployable shields, shoot defenders, which can be difficult when they're sitting behind a deployable shield, and then all of a sudden the attackers have so little time to go for their execute, they just W shift their way into the bomb site, again, hoping that they win their ones. And from the, strategy element of Siege, I like that from the start. However, when the same strategy is being utilized over and over again, it becomes tiring. Because at the end of the day, there's a reason why we're here in Rainbow Six Siege and not in CS, because there's more utility that needs to be utilized here in Siege. There is more overarching strategy. Now, obviously, there's utility in CSGO. By 100%, your flashbang placements, your nade placements, your smoke placements. I'm definitely saying, there's strategy there, but in Siege, where it's a hybrid from a MOBA to an FPS, it requires a different level of nuance.
We're kind of running out of things to talk about here, but one lucky thing, the match is ready, so we'll be able to jump in. No more waffling from us. We can actually get into the substance of this game. Thank you all for sticking with us in this trial and tribulation of the servers. We actually maintain pretty steady viewership, which is awesome. I mean, SCS has just been on the rise recently, and that's all thanks to you guys at home. Operator vetoes will roll through. Thatcher gotta be this first one. I mean, it's just like, Thatcher is Thatcher, and he doesn't play on Cafe Dostoevsky.
And speaking of things I want to change, I would love to see a world where we don't default ban a Thatcher. However, he's such a crucial operator. You need to have utility on defense, and Thatcher no longer destroys the utility. He temporarily turns it off. But honestly, an ADS, a One My Pancake that is disabled for 10 seconds, may as well be destroyed. Sure, it can come back down the road and save you, but when the attackers are throwing their entire arsenal at you, as well as that kitchen sink, you're going to be dead in that scenario. Deployable shield is going to fall. Maverick, a pseudo hard breacher, and pseudo thatcher. We can do both of those walls well. He falls into the ban phase. Same with Umai.
The thing that you bring up about ADSs, I feel like if an ADS reactivates, that's on the offense. That's their bad, because you need to time your EMPs well and use them to actually do something, right? I mean, that seems so obvious, but you use your Thatcher EMPs and you push up. You break the ADSs. You don't just throw an EMP at the start of the round to be like, okay, I mean, Pepega, it's denied. Like, that doesn't do anything.
Traditional lineups being brought out by both these rosters for the most part, but there is an information twist that is going to be that Pulse and Valkyrie in play. And we've seen this kind of be the new meta. Instead of utilizing deployable shield ADS with my pancake meta, it's all about gaining as much information as possible. We've actually been in that meta technically the entire time with the first iteration of Cafe, where you'd place a mirror window over by pallets, deny entry into piano, and more or less the meta we're in is the same idea, but you're just utilizing, well, pulse scanners, you're utilizing Valkyrie cameras, you're utilizing the Maestro bubbles. But we can't even talk about that bar bomb site since we're going downstairs for our first site.
It's a lot to pick apart here. Afer bringing IQ-G8. You've got the Pulse on the board, or, I mean, you had it. So I was fooled by the 6-pick there. So maybe Afer was kind of drawn into that as well. A lot of times, the only real situation where you'll see the Pulse brought is when you're running a top floor hold and you've got your Pulse below inside mining or train to try and get a freebie nitro cell, or the old Wichita Wolves roster brought a lot of Pulse when they would play the mining setup, and they would essentially just have Pulse downstairs inside the kitchen, getting intel on the players if they're outside on the west vents balcony, if they're pushing up at red. And so those are your only real opportunities. Vale obviously don't know that. They don't know the site. They don't know, the fact that the Pulse has been swapped off to. And with the fact that EXO is still playing the Cade and Raffi is on the IQ, or rather on the Valkyrie, the IQ makes sense. You're going to be able to spot all that utility, break it. It's not going to be just hiding somewhere for the duration of the round. You got that magnifying glass to be able to look a little bit deeper. Meanwhile, Subarctic takes a difficult decision to swing with the Maestro and takes a little bit of health for it. Down now at about 50. Good shots there from Psycho. Not able to confirm it, but that's going to force Maestro to play just a little bit more passive.
And probably the most important opera in this lineup, other than the smoke, should not be taking a firefight earlier. Valkyrie should always be the first line of attack for the defense. PDHM, unfortunately, will lose Sad. Just too aggressive over by those brown stairs, and that's a dangerous position to swing, because as soon as the attackers have the control of the west side of the map, well, you're going to have to train and swing a very long angle going against assault rifles and particularly long-ranged optics. But at least we have control of that top floor. It's going to be very important to swing that sledgehammer and start to isolate those defenders.
Vale with the man advantage so far, the vertical game begins, and they try to apply more pressure down below onto the site floor. Aver has totally gone in, now inside of the coat check room, trying to fend things off, but still PDHM have elements of a roam in reserve. If you see the Jaeger push down brown stairs, or maybe even just come up and flank Hypers, who's not paying total attention, that could be a real issue. But prompted, the smoke is taken off the board. A big kill, especially with 60 seconds left. Eliminating the smokes allows you to be just a little bit more agile. Meanwhile, though, the Jaeger will find a pick on a Psycho. Frozen for 2 now as Exo and Subarctic nearly line up, and it's just the Jaeger to try to fend off the final bits of the offense. It won't happen. Afer for another frag. I think that's 3 on the round for him as Team Vale come to a rousing success in the first round.
All off gunfights. It seemed like PDHM was not prepared for that level of quick execute. Their offsite pressure fell almost instantaneously, and it put all the defenders that were still in the kitchen site in a bubble, where they knew the push was coming from the west, but they also knew the attacker was going to start to rotate the majority of their force into every possible insertion point. And to apply that pressure, and slowly that pressure started to mount, they started to compress PDHM, and it forced PDHM to take aggressive gunfights in response. However, the attackers were quite prepared for that, and they were just, well, holding those angles and ended up winning their ones in the end. So a great initial round. PDHM is going to have to start to identify where it went wrong for them. As a result, they're going to be changing up their bomb site entirely, delivering us over to the tertiary site of reading.
Loving the rotation so far, rather than do what we saw on Oregon from Vale, which was try that dorm site twice in a row, and it just came up empty-handed both times. Immediately, PDHM are going to flesh out, going to try something a little bit different, and it's no harm. You're here in round 2, you know, it's not like you have to go to a site where you know that you're going to win and you know that you're comfortable on, because if you don't, you risk losing the game entirely. It's round 2. Try a different objective, see how it plays out, and compare it with the unsuccessfulness of that first round. So Bartik lurking below, he finds a drone. Psycho probably not too happy about that, as an early hit suffered to the drone economy, and you see 2 drones broken so far. And that's something that I know you love to talk about. Team Vale, if they're going to play with their drones, are they preemptively placed? Are they in position to gain that early intel? Or are they being used kind of more in reserve for that hot droning element?
And we always talk about attacker explosive utility, those frag grenades, the Ash launchers, the Zofia launchers, but every attacking roster, when you change out the elements, they'll always have access to, well, 10 drones. And even Twitch drones still count as a drone. And that asset you have will guarantee, or not guarantee you a victory, but they are the driving force to your round victories. They provide information. They will stop flanks, or at least give you information on the flanks, and you have to make sure you put your drones in appropriate positions where they're not going to be sacrificed to free. When you have them just haphazardly put out the map and you lose 20% of your drone economy before you're even out of your spawn, that becomes a terrible position to be in, because when you have a pulse lurking below, you have to have constant relay of information on him, and if he's just allowed to persist in every possible corner since you haven't droned it out yet, that means it's a free nitro cell to remove your kneecaps.
Swiss cheese all along the watchtower here up on the top floor. They've got plenty of openings for PDHM to play the long angle into contest Team Vale, forcing them to waste more and more time. Look at the clock, 1 minute and 30, still cocktail control, not under the thumb of Vale, and Nitros persist below to try and deal this damage. Psycho playing the elevated position, smart for him up on the big bar, but meanwhile, Hyper is taking a lot of damage from that gas canister. The angle for Psycho straight through the cocktail wall just simply not working, and he's unable to connect the shots as Frozen will go down. The loss of the hard breach, not the end of the world on this site, but the man disadvantage is certainly something to concern yourself with, as Team Vale have spent so much utility and so much time to try to take this control. Prompted caught well out of position by Hypers, a good trade frag, but meanwhile, the Jaeger will find Afer as he rotates through from the mining hallway. 45 seconds, Team Vale in a disadvantage, but still keeping themselves steady and in the race as they try to take the remnants of this control. More explosive play, Subarctic finds Psycho. Yep, Pipers will get Exo now, 3 versus 2. Team Vale continue to play punch after punch as they try to keep themselves in their weight, but the time is low and Marmalade is totally separated from his teammate. That doesn't matter though, as she'll find a kill onto the Jaeger. Equal fight with 15 seconds.
Morblade's gonna have to find more impact frags, just start sprinting into a bomb site, put the plant down. Hyper's in a position to go for the cross cover, and PDHM doesn't seem to know that the bomb is being placed. You have to start to go, you have to start to swing. That won't happen as well. Hyper's known in a position, he will go for that quick swing, now losing his life. Marmalade against 2, forced to rotate outside the held door, and here comes a pulse cardiac sensor. It's free information. You can say, hey, just go for the defuse, but don't solo peek like that. Fortunately for PDHM, they end up going for the trade. That could have been a little bit too close to comfort. You have to make sure you swing together if you have the man advantage.
Good retake there. And the game sense to check the corner for the Ash, I believe that was Raffi. I have to commend that. It's not often that you'll know or you'll predict that somebody's there, and I didn't catch, whether or not the pulse scanner had been used to figure out if the Ash was there. But either way, the intel play or the game knowledge to preemptively check that angle worked big and allowed PDHM to fight their way back in it. A good response and a great effort from Team Vale to try and pull themselves back up by their bootstraps, still managing to get the plant down, but I think just a little bit too passive from Marmalade in the dying seconds of that round, having bailed off to play outside. And the pulse came up big. They had the perfect intel. It was immediately communicated to Rafi. You saw that he tried to go for the swing. The teammate was already sticking the plant, so, even if Rafi hadn't managed to trade with the player outside the window, they still would have been able to stick that plant. And given some good timing, if Marmalade was a little bit too hesitant outside on the balcony and she didn't run in just immediately, that could have still been a PDHM round.
So you're highlighting Wichita Wolves earlier, going to the quaternary bomb site of mining and dining, but we're going to be seeing kitchen twice in a row. That you have access to upstairs bar, and the reason why I brought up Wichita Wolves is they never went to bar. They elected to go for the quaternary bomb site instead of a primary bomb site. Are we going to see something similar here from PDHM? We're also talking about the importance of a drone economy. Sure, that run out didn't really accomplish anything in air quotes. However, 10% of the attacker's drone economy was lost for free. Nothing needed to be done for that. And that's just a bad use of information at the end of the day.
And I feel like drone economy, the usage of drones, intel, all that stuff is what really separates your pro caliber teams, those in CL, from teams that are closer to T3. Because we all know it's the young players, the ones who've got that youthful element that are the biggest gunners and can frag like crazy. But it's the experience and the coordination to know how to use your drones that really make the good teams the best. And it's really a slippery slope. To lose 2 drones early is not the end of the world. Certainly it's a big impact and you're a little bit less flexible, but then you lose a 3rd drone and a 4th drone, and so now you're down even lower and to only 60% of that full potential, which is a real problem. Here we go for the wall opening. Seemed like Vale made good timing, and Hypers is careful to check above himself, not overexposing himself to the angle, but he is moving in rather quickly, and Rafi too slow to catch that angle. We might have just seen Hypers slip through the grasp of the intel. We saw him do this earlier against Le Club, but it won't be a much success. It's just a flurry of kills, blue across the board. Marmalade with the sole response, but the diffuser now out of Team Vale's hands.
A linear was to execute through Big Bakery. We've seen it work before because it allows the attackers to open that wall relatively quickly, but you have to deal with the vertical pressure, and nobody has seemed to understand that. They don't want to clear from above, and as a result, it's a 1v4 Marmalade in a terrible position, just rotating now outside. And I think that QE spam right there says it all. Just the show of frustration, attempting to one-tap her way into success. Now, she does have the head glitch position of the bakery itself that she can utilize against PDHM. However, pushing her way in through kitchen prep. She is in vulnerable position from the position above. She can be swung by Satarafi, but that won't happen at all as she takes the gunfight over by Java, losing her life to the Alda.
So Barktic coming up big, near to close that one out, and, well, there weren't a whole lot of opportunities for Vale to fight themselves back into that position, and that'll correct the story. Of course, we saw Kitchen played as the first round, no plant, and a success even still then for Team Vale. And now as we go back there again, well, PDHM are able to fix it all up and get their success. Now with 2 defensive victories back-to-back, we're forced to make that difficult decision between the Wichita Wolves and their mindset of going to mining, or instead heading upstairs to the more common choice, a bar and cocktail. Without an additional hard breacher, I'm a bit worried, Chief. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Now, upstairs, we've been seeing a single hard breacher be run before, just the ace. And I get it, you don't necessarily need to be opening up every single wall under the sun. However, ace will give you a little bit more versatility than that thermite. Now, sure, you can say thermite has access to flashbangs where he can burn ADSs. However, I'd rather bring out the smoke grenades to deny, any angles, any lines of sight whatsoever. And also, you have access to opening up 3 different walls compared to 2.
My only worry is if EXO is able to stall out the hard breaching process for longer than maybe Vale are anticipating, because immediately right off the bat, you have to get the red wall open. Otherwise, you're going to have a hell of a time pushing in, and you take that, you've already got only a single exothermic afterwards, considering there's no secondary hard breach gadget and no secondary hard breacher. And so now you have to acknowledge only one exothermic, Kate Electro Claws, which will be very difficult to clear, and the opening we saw in the cart wall. So peeking that and getting in position really to use the exothermic is going to be almost a death sentence. And so honestly, I think maybe an ace would have made more sense for Vale. Perhaps they were expecting this to go a different way, but you know, the only other site open is mining, and really I don't think a thermite is doing you much better over there.
Vertical control starting to be established. Those drones sending their way down range. They've isolated that red is a clear, quick drop for them. Well, they're going to have to now challenge the traditional part. Not only a potential swing from Pixel, but the hole in the floor established. And that is a way for a Nitro Cell to be sent in your direction. You couple that with the Meister cameras that are abundance over towards the west, and it's more or less free information for PDHM. However, there is no Nitro Cell playing underneath currently. It is actually going to be the Jaeger there. So, a position to go for the flank. However, it's not going to be quite enough as of now.
Afi lurking below. Nitro in hand, you can see that he's actively tossed it out. It looked like it detonated and didn't do anything. Maybe a bit of damage onto Afer, but he's not in a position where that would have damaged him. So, one bit of explosive utility off the board, something that we won't have to concern ourselves with from the Team Vale point of view anymore. Gotta watch out for Hypers, though. This time, it's not Afer on the GA-A1. And he might be able to make the impact, but no. Psycho is felled. Oh, Thermite, he's gonna go for it. Real risky, but there's nobody in mid-bar to use the angle unless the exothermic is stopped by an Evil Eye. That's not gonna happen, though. The angle wide on open as the Valkyrie tries to play the bullet hole. Raffi could go big or he could go home empty-handed. All depends on this single angle. Frozen right in position, but it's not going to work for Raffi as now he's in a rock. Between a rock and a hard place, bailing off. Here comes Hyper. Rounding the corner, he does not check the angle. Almost able to react in time, but Wav will still gun him down. 5v3 for PDHM. Marmalade still closing in. She's trying to get the impact and shut down the White Stairs player, but it's a smoke canister that's keeping her at bay, and Vale, they can't get much done. The only saving grace is the coverage from Afer and the Nitro, or rather, the diffuser for Frozen. He could try to plant here, but there's so little coverage. Frozen now down. He tried to peek the deep freezer. That's not going to work for him. Again, it's Marmalade. She's the last one in the clutch, and it won't work out. PDHM, 3 rounds in a row now, and a flawless one to cap off this rotation.
A great round from PDHM. However, we need to see a better identification of mini games. When you're attacking on this map is designed to have mini games. It's designed to have those buff rooms, which are expansions of your bomb site. And whether or not it's deployable shield and pixel or a deployable shield and barback, you have to, again, identify what is being held and how to break that down. Because we saw poor Frozen there, forced to hold mouse 1 and just try to send a pressing fire over that deployable shield because all the explosive utility was either lost in a previous gunfight because that player was dropped, or those frag grenades were used in another position. And when you have a strategy where you have Maestro bubbles, where you have deployable shields, you have to really prioritize what utility the defenders have is going to be crucial and what utility is going to stop me from achieving my objective, that is going to be winning the round either through winning gunfights or planting the bomb.
The real nail biter last time we went to reading, and it came down to a 2v2. Vale were almost able to put themselves in the winning position, but it was that game knowledge and the trust in the teammates here for PDHM that was able to secure them that round. There's a lot of time waste. If you look in that last round, I mean, I have to point it out. Vale, it didn't look like they had a really concise plan. They were well spread out. The lack of a ranged hard breacher forced them to wait a long time to make sure they were safe from the open cart wall angle. And I think getting off the Thermite, playing something like a Hibana makes plenty of sense for Frozen. It's a little bit easier to play on the Thermite, right? The 5.56, a hard-hitting gun. It's not got the most recoil, but Frozen is a pretty consistent hard breacher, so he should be familiar, playing across all 4 of the breachers and not just a single one, because Thermite is easy to run with. The time element has got to be cracked down on. I want to see these pre-placed drones. They'll need to have the intel and they need to act on it, because PDHM are playing this in the best way possible. They've got all the angles opened up, and so that means that Vale have to tread lightly. And the more time that they waste is just a little bit extra comfortability that PDHM will face at the end of the round.
And Vale was struggling with that vertical control, starting to remove the ceiling away from PDHM. Now you do have access to a sledge, as well as the 2 flat breaching charges that Ash and Zofia have access to, so the entire ceiling should be removed. But that process is going to be extremely taxing, simply because there is still control over on the cocktail side of the map, which is towards the east, as well as access to 3 different nitro cells. Now, Exo's already spent his, did not find contact, but you still have to be lurking and be prepared for the additional 2 to be sent in your direction.
Much better timing here. They'll have the vertical process opened up and all of the defenders pushed off the top floor. Exo tagged up out of a nitro cell, but you've still got 1 left in the pocket of Subarctic. The fact that Vale have managed to survive the initial 2 is a huge boost for them, and it allows them to be much more comfortable. But here comes the Jaeger, groaning and pushing himself up the brown stairs. He'll gun down Marmalade. So even if PDHM are a team of players who have suffered greatly and all are really low on HP, they've still got that opening kill to back them up. What? Frozen? He doesn't get Subarctic, who walks completely out into the open, and meanwhile, Hypers collects the refract. The time is getting lower and lower, and PDHM reclaim the top floor as Raffi will get another one. Gun down on the response, it's Afer who secures the headshot, but it's still PDHM back in the 3v2 as we get deja vu. It's back to Hypers in the middle of the objective. But the top floor retake played expertly is still causing time waste. Afer with a great kill onto Wav, and now Subarctic and Exo have to do it all over again. Can they deny the plant, or will Vale get that extra bit of leverage? Plenty of intel onto the player at bottom brown, and Afer is predicting this, but still they have little time and they need to go for the defuse. The mute does creep up the brown stairs. Afer for a 3rd kill, the nitro in hand, the ace, Ash charging through, and Vale will get it in round number 5. Finally ending the streak accumulated there by PDHM, and a real close one.
And that's the power of that vertical control. Sure, you can bring out as many nitro cells as you want. You can have access to 3. You can have access to 5. They don't really matter until they find contact with an attacker. And none of them found any contact whatsoever. And as soon as that ceiling, that floor was removed, PDHM was forced to scramble. They're forced to take gunfights, and some of those gunfights worked in their favor. Marmalade pushing up those brown stairs. She didn't have enough coverage. We even saw them place a drone over in that vicinity to grab and make sure Marmalade would be protected when she enters those stairwell, but it was either shot out, nobody was watching it. And also, you have to keep in mind, Marmalade is playing that flank watch, so if anybody is tasked with holding that drone, it's probably going to be her.
That was a big improvement for Team Vale. As we kind of talked about the rudimentary elements and all of the various checklist things that have to be accomplished when you're taking control of the top floor, but we're going down now to the kitchen. And last time this site was played, it was about as default a strategy as you can get. Team Vale just pushed in. They tried to go wide west to east, and it fell flat on its face. And PDHM, they were just all in the right positions to put a stop to it. They'll have to come at this from a different angle, honestly. I don't know if trying to go for that same bakery take again is going to work, because now this is the, 3rd time we've seen Kitchen played? PDHM have got to be feeling comfortable. They're going to understand the routines of Team Vale, how they like to push in, and they're going to be in the most comfortable spot to be able to stop that. With the rappels up to the rooftop, it does look like a full top-down clear from Team Vale will be on the course for this round.
And honestly, thankful to see this. You know, vertical clears are the traditional way of executing upon this map. You can be successful with a quick execute through the big bakery. And I believe the reason why we saw that strategy come through is when the defenders were electing to expand their bomb sites into VIP as well as into the dining room couch area. And you'd go through a quick execute. You open up the west, you go for your plant, and that smoke player is off-site, that Maestro player is off-site, their utilities off-site, so you get that bomb down quickly before they can crash back onto your site. However, since we don't see that strategy right now at all for PDHM, the only real option is to remove every single roadblock that is currently being utilized, and that is going to be that off-site pressure, converting that into vertical control to directly challenge PDHM on their bomb site.
Team Vale with decent progress so far. It looks like they've got control of the second floor and at least will soon acquiesce the knowledge that everyone from PDHM has fallen off and has given it up. Look at the hard breaching though. A single secondary gadget for Buck and exothermics from Frozen, but because the Maverick is banned, it's going to be real difficult. Oh, okay, Hypers. Wow, really smart play for him. He shot the breaching round and it broke the electro claw. Now the response close up at the window. Wow, Hyper saving Frozen's life there as Exo tried to Kobe the Nitro up at the hatch, but he will be able to land the headshot, and good thing he did. Great position. Team Vale, hatch is open, 5 versus 4.
I want to correct what I said earlier. This actually is an expansion into the east, utilizing that VIP with that smoke. So this is going to put the attackers into a position where they have to decide where you want to deal with and how you want to remove PDHM from every possible scenario. Marmalade will catch out that smoke in a great position. Her drone is established, and now they're just going to put that crossfire and start to apply that pressure. Smoke's gonna have to start to spend more of those toxic babes. He only has 2 of them left in his back pocket. Hyper will be the first casualty, down but not out, over by the red stairs, now being confirmed. An awkward position to be in if you're trying to execute upon this bomb site. There's 20 seconds left. You're gonna have to fight with a man disadvantage. It's only a -1, so something that you're more than capable of achieving. But Frozen is in the site right now, putting the bomb down. Where is the answer whatsoever from PDHM? None of their utilities starting to connect with Frozen until he takes his gun up, challenges, and takes that damage. But he's now down but not out, surrendering the round to PDHM.
The time, I mean, they made good effort and progress to take control of the top floor, but that VIP hold, the extension, and the Maestro's support at bar, you take all that and you combine it by Raffi playing long down at Small Bakery, that was just so difficult for Vale to clear, and they wasted a lot of time. And, you know, the shots on the Zofia, she tried to move up into restaurant, she was gunned down. I think the Thermite could just, I mean, he just didn't have the effort or the ability to push that player in VIP. They never were able to dominate VIP, to take out the smoke, and as a result of that, the attack could never really get into adolescence. And that was just played really smart in the way that PDHM went about that. Exo, he got a little bit too excited with the Nitro, tried to launch it up, but I don't totally blame him. You're trying to slow things down, stall it out as much as possible, and what better way to do that by denying the possibility of a hatch drop?
So Vale's going to change up their defense compared to PDHM. We saw the Maestro Evil Eyes be so critical to how PDHM was playing. They're going to go away from that strategy. And it's actually going to be kind of paying homage to one of the original ways of holding this map, bringing out that Mozzie. And again, it's all about the idea of denying the attackers entry with their drones. If you can cut down access and information lines, the attackers could be severely nerfed. Now, even a lot of options of placing these Mozzie pests, you can directly deny the west side of Piano, or if you want to do an extension downstairs, well, you put your Mozzie pest to allow your defenders to have that extra flexibility as they move throughout the map. And indeed, it is going to be that case. It's going to be Nitrocell denial from underneath.
Psycho looks eager to play on this roam on the second floor, and I mean, he's got the best operator to go for it. Denying the drones, this is going to choose to waste a lot of time, and that's something to look at. How quickly PDHM get in and, you know, stop him from lurking around the bottom floor, it kind of will change depending on if PDHM are going to go for that bottom clear without the Buck. I wouldn't think so. And, you know, so you kind of have to choose. Are you going to let the player with the Nitro kind of just hang out down there? Or are you going to be more active and do something about it? Afer just got 2 drones, so Good picks on the intel early so far, but now we'll look to contest the window and Subarctic on the Ash. It's the two fragging operators, the chief entries, who will put themselves in that first position. Meanwhile, though, Raffi finds Afer. Was that the ticket angle? I don't know. We'll have a look, hopefully, but Pixel Control now felled, and Afer gone. That's a big name so far. He's the top fragger for the entirety of Team Vale, and only one kill behind Raffi, who pushes himself ahead just now.
Actually, I think that was from a west window rappel, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. PDHM is just winning their firefights. And just like that, they collect 3 on the scoreboard. Now a 2v5 and forced to rely on your, well, no longer site anchors, but they're going to have to evolve into site anchors. Fortunately, Marmalade, she'll have 1 more nitrocell available, and she has to make sure she pulls the pin on that and lands it true. Hyper does have those cameras. He's going to be forced to that camera watch duty, so if those are still throughout the map, they can have free information and do end up connecting that position, but hasn't yet happened yet. Holes being held by every possible way, particularly over by Pallet, denying entry into white. That fatal funnel is going to be quite impressive. PDHM.
Another flashbang. Marmalade continuing to feel pressure as you've only got this southeast corridor to be able to work with. And PDHM make an excellent response and adaptation. Now dropping down to have the player over by the heaven window. And it looks like Wav trying to contest into Cocktail directly. This could allow a lot of possibilities. You'll see the flood come through. The Zofia makes the challenge. It actually just flies in the window, but it's a 1-for-1 trade. And with PDHM having so many frags, that works completely to their benefit. They'll get round number 7, and I mean, just an excellent display of how to attack the top floor. Textbook. And the mid-round pivot, the adaptation to go for that rappel, I mean, it just completely brought up a succinct conclusion.
Yeah, we saw aggressive plays all around. Afer would start off that position. He was wide swinging Pixel, which is something that you tend to see. However, what was lacking in that position was the deployable shield. Again, if you want to create a time sink where you waste as much time as possible, it's not going to be necessarily off your aggressive plays. It's not about taking those firefights. It's about burning utility. And if you put all 3 of your ADSs there, well, that's a set of flashbangs that's going to be removed. Or if the attackers don't do their due diligence, you might be able to grab something a little bit more critical, whether or not it's a frag grenade or a breaching round of some kind. But nonetheless, we're going to see a rotation back downstairs for the first time of this half. We're going to have to see what the adaptations are. And it's going to be, again, the motif of this series is denying drones at all cost. Mute, Mozzie, plus the Vigil himself.
Team Vale have got to get back in the saddle because so far PDHM, because they've managed to secure these round streaks, it was 3 rounds from round 2 to round 4, and now they've got 2 building up, crossing the halfway point, and going now into round number 8, 5-2. I mean, it's crazy how quickly success across both sides and the translation therein puts you far out of reach of the opposition. And I predicted, you know, this would be 7-4, 7-5. We're kind of looking more like a 7-3 from where we're standing right now. Good understanding of the doctrine for PDHM. They were able to just get a kill across the board. Pixel didn't even present an issue. I mean, Raffi was there. As soon as the Jaeger moved just slightly out of position, Afer was eliminated. What? Where is Hypers going? Just flies out the hell door without a second thought. That's the easiest entry frag we've seen all game.
Unbridled aggression. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be controlled with that. You have to understand where your opponent... Oh, please stop running out of hell door. I mean, I guess there's a reason why it's called hell. Everybody is just, well, dying in that position. A huge oversight, and the death and destruction is going to continue. Stop being over aggressive. PDHM, utter control of this round. Simply like that. There's no reason you should be in this situation. 3 members of your roster vanishing in 60 seconds is kind of unacceptable.
There's the one saving grace. Afer manages to push up white. Shotgun delivers him the kill on a Zofia. That was the end of the killing spree that we saw Zofia accumulate so far, but I don't know if that one kill is going to be able to make the big difference. The vertical play being opened up. Still a 2-to-1 ratio. in favor of PDHM. They've got plenty of manpower to disperse all throughout the area. The drone economy is one thing to concern yourself with. It looked like you only have 2 drones that were undeployed, or rather third, but, you know, maybe the man advantage in the drone count doesn't really matter. Afer tries to peek up the White Stairs, and, you know, I guess I have to sympathize with him. All of these plays, the aggressive runouts, are because Team Vale are starting to feel just a little bit desperate. They're down by a far meter, you know, whether it was those 2 opening kills that were defined by the round count or the man advantage that prompted Afer to run up the stairs. But now with the diffuser down, Marmalade in the big clutch. It seems like she's always the last one standing, and the best gun in that position against multiple opponents will not be enough to guarantee her success. PDHM, round number 8, another 3-round streak as they are playing lights out, and there's nothing Team Vale can do to put a stop to it.
I mean, Vale just needs to take their aggression dial and spin it back like 6 counter rotations, because the way they played that was far too aggressive. And again, sure, you might find yourself in a position where you're not as comfortable in this round. You've lost rounds over and over again. You're trying to mix something up. Perfectly, I understand that. But swinging windows and just constantly running out, trying and forcing the opening pick. It's one thing if you had a Valkyrie over to the east where you threw out a camera and you say, we have confirmed confirmation that there's an attacker in this position. You can go off that yellow ping and win that firefight. Totally fine with that. But when you're just haphazardly peeking the same held door frame over and over again with no information, you're going off an audio cue of a rappel, but at the end of the day, you can be in just about every position in the north that you're getting that cue from. And he ran out with a shotgun, too. You might not be winning that gunfight if he's on the other side of the map, and you could be getting slammed. I doubt we're going to see a round play out exactly like we did again. It's going to be a lot more controlled of a round, I'm assuming at least. I'm hoping at least.
Yeah, I mean, for Vale to do that all over again, it would just be ignoring what happened in the conclusion of that round. They're going to try to play a little bit slower. They're going to try to dial it back, hold more passively, and, I mean, not just give it away. I think one thing that's fairly obvious, it's the ugly truth, the fact that Psycho is 0-8. And he's playing on Vigil. He's supposed to be that first contact defender, but, I mean, when he meets the contact, he's just not winning the fight. And PDHM, the consistency and the, just repetition that they're able to secure is plainly evident. The only one who's even falling behind a little bit in the kills is Subarctic, who still maintains a positive ratio because he has kept himself away from 2 risky fights, and he's played incredibly smart. The kills for PDHM, I mean, 9 for Wav, 10 for Raffi. Everybody has the kills when it's necessary, and Vale, it's just one of those matches for them where they can't get the fights off initially. Psycho is lurking below the hatch. Is it going to be the frag grenade from EXO? It looks like he hasn't gone for it just yet, and Psycho bailing off will reduce the possibility that he dies to that explosive. But as a result, Vale will contest and give up just a little bit more of this top floor.
All top floor has now been fully relinquished. However, the second floor is still the power position for Vale. They have all their nitro cells, and they have the majority of their man count in that position. PHM's going to have to deal with it relatively quickly. You have access to top hatches, and you have access to those stairwells, but as stated earlier, those can turn into fatal funnels. So you have to make sure when you're walking down those positions, you're not going to find yourself in a firefight, and if you are, put yourself in cover as quickly as possible. And just like that, everybody has rotated back down to this downstairs into their bomb site proper, which will allow PDHM to start their vertical pressure. But you don't have a lot of time left on the clock. Only 70 seconds. That's still enough time to be successful with vertical control, which you have to expedite and start to take frags on that vertical control itself.
So much for opening up all the vertical holes if you don't get anything done with it, and so far the only thing that's been done is the action of them being open and Subarctic taking a little bit of damage. Psycho, his first kill of the game! He gets Sophia. That's a big player to take down, and it could contest this one to push it back further. Afer, feeling confident as ever, he'll wide swing the bottom of the White Stairs and take out Subarctic. PDHM on the back foot in what seems like the first time in forever. Oh, nearly prompted having a player overexposed, but now they have to accept the possibility that dominating VIP is the next step in the plan. Afer on low HP, the ace to challenge it. He'll land the shot, and now Hyper's down as well. More players peeking. Psycho, the only one left, close up, trapped inside reception as it's a full push. All members of PDHM and execution. Round 9 for PDHM and a 7-2 victory.
What a phenomenal showing by PDHM. They were a surprise entry for me and, well, a second round of qualifiers, and they are showing why they deserve to play. The T2 roster is stepping down to show the T3 boys that they can play on any possible level that you deliver them. A phenomenal showing of exactly how to defend and execute on this map. And maybe if you see PDHM in your lobbies in the future, you don't take them to Cafe at all.
Yeah, and I mean, it was back to one of those questions that we talked about. Was it going to be Team Vale being warmed up or PDHM carrying that momentum of their consistency in fast wins today? They played really well, and I think this is a stark warning sign. We were talking about both of these teams as being those potential contenders for the close qualifier, and PDHM just put themselves at a huge distance with the domination of that victory. Vale, I mean, they tried to keep it close. There were a few rounds that it could have swung either way, especially if you look at the reading setup where Marmalade was the final one, and it just so happened that they traded, and that allowed the defuse to go down. I think that one could have approached closer, 7-4 maybe, but on the day, PDHM played to the height of their individual capabilities, and it paid them dividends.
And looking at the full round 5 right now, the Gatekeepers would take a 7-0 victory against Impact Esports. That could be a forfeit win or a win based off some type of admin calling. I mean, Gatekeepers, they need no introduction. They're a phenomenal roster. Impact Esports has been doing solid. I don't think they're a 7-0 loss team, but you don't know at the end of the day. Men's would take a 7-4 victory over Darkside. Something would prove would win 7-3 over Ancients 1. Jimmy and the boys going against Bill Quad. My friend, hate to say it to you, Jimmy would end up losing 7-5. Yep, Floppa themselves. Phantom Rose, a 7-4 victory for the Floppas themselves. Zakar would go against 7-5 against Amrock Orange. The Lads versus Sleeping Giants, a 7-1 victory for the Lads.
Breaking my heart, Jimmy and the boys. They fell. They gave Team Bill Quad a close battle, 5-7, but they weren't able to finish it out. That's a real heartbreaker. I hope to see Jimmy and the rest of his team play out the rest of their qualifiers. And if Jimmy and the boys make it into close calls, I will be over the moon.
Honestly, like, you need to, like, buy them, like, a fruit basket or something if they make it one of those edible baskets.
They need a trophy just for being in close qualifiers.
I mean, maybe that's something to play for. You know, maybe Storm Competitive Series Season 5 isn't enough for Jimmy and the boys. Maybe they just need that fruit basket. Or, you know, Valentine's Day is coming up. You can be Jimmy's Valentine.
We've got a bit of a break ahead of us, so stick with us. Good viewership so far. Thank you to all the fans. But with that being said, we have a lot of games that are left to be played, so we're going to go to a break. So hopefully we'll have a better match and one that plays a little bit longer ahead of you in the next round. Stick with us.